Hello and welcome to The Learning Lounge, iHasco's monthly podcast series where we delve into a variety of subjects as we look to uncover opinions, expertise, and experiences with our amazing studio guests. Now, today we're focusing on the impending threat, or lack thereof, a robot uprising, looking at some common misconceptions surrounding artificial intelligence, or AI as we more commonly know it. And to help me navigate this very sort of crazy topic, you could say, very prominent topic, our two brilliant guests. We've got Sarah Schlobohm and James Skinner. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So let's just dive into your guys' experience and your roles that you're performing at the moment so our viewers and audience can sort of get to know you a little bit better. Sarah, do you mind just telling us a little bit about what your role is currently and sort of how you got to this point?
Sure. Hi, I'm Sarah Schlobohm. I'm head of AI for the Citation Group, which is iHasco's parent company. I started off in this world actually in particle physics. So I started using machine learning models to try and pick out which particles were happening in a reaction. I joke that it should have come with a free programming degree because we spent so much time on that.
Wow.
When I left academia, it turns out business wants all these interesting models as well. I joined a graduate scheme at PwC, accidentally became a chartered accountant, and
Love that accidentally.
Slipped
Well,
and fell
yeah,
into
exactly.
chartered accountancy.
it was that or get deported. So
Love it.
and then since then, I've been working in industry. I'm ex-PwC, ex-HSBC, and now I'm here at Citation Group.
Okay, fantastic. Well, it's great to have you here to help us navigate AI. And James, what about yourself?
That is a really hard act to follow, isn't it? So I am iHasco's product owner. I'm responsible for strategy in terms of the iHasco product. My trajectory has sort of taken me from science background. I started out, I studied biology and then went through to working in some laboratories and then sort of progressed into software development, and here I am.
Fantastic. Well, like I say, great to have you both with us. And, you know, it's a big topic, AI. It's certainly something that's become very, very newsworthy this past year. But I'm sure, as you've mentioned, Sarah, you've been working with machine learning for a number of years already. So it's been happening behind the scenes in industries we're not necessarily seeing. I guess as it comes to the fore now, a big question on a lot of people's minds is AI trustworthy? You know, how do you answer that for anyone who sort of has that kind of concern just off the bat?
It's a big question, and you might as well ask, are humans trustworthy? Because
Yeah.
sometimes the answer is definitely not.
Yeah.
And that's true for AI as well. It can do things like hallucinate, where it will confidently make up a wrong answer. Again, something humans do a lot
Yeah.
as well. And it may return inaccurate information, so you can't always trust it. But you can do things like ask it to provide references for you. You can do things like try and make sure it's learning from data that doesn't have a particular bias, things like that.
And when you say, you know, that it can hallucinate or essentially lie, right? It kind of create, you know, false information. Is it due to some malevolent kind of, you know, desire? Is it building some sort of personality behind there? Like, what is it? Why would it lie to us?
It's not lying, right? It's creating answers based on what it's seen in the past.
Okay.
And if it's learned from good data in the past, then it can replicate what it's seen. But if it's just kind of thinking, yeah, it probably might be about like this, you may get something that's not entirely true back.
And, you know, in your roles both here now with Citation Group and iHasco, but previously as well, where you've worked with machine learning, how have you seen this development? Was it sort of slow motion at the start and then it sort of rapidly accelerated, or has this been sort of a gradual build to now? And now we're just at this inflection point where the public sort of, it's entered the public sphere and it's now sort of going off at rocket speed.
Yeah, the term artificial intelligence itself dates back to about the 1950s. It was Alan Turing that invented it. You may know him from The Imitation Game and other pop culture references as well. But the thing that's really accelerated it recently, a lot of this has been steadily going on in the background. But at the end of 2022, ChatGPT was launched, and this put a lovely free chat interface on what was a really intelligent model that had been trained in the background. And that accessibility, I think, is really what's accelerated it here. The technological achievements are great, but that's the most successful product launch in history by any metric. And, well, product is your area. You know more about that one.
Yeah. I think, just going back to what you were saying about the trustworthiness, I think it's really important to put more of a focus on the people that are responsible for developing these things. I think there's lots of ethical questions around who is developing them, what motives do they have, and I think trying to move away from a narrative of the robots are evil. It's who's building the robots, to me. In terms of what we're doing in the business, and from a product point of view, I think we're lucky that we've got a lot of people in-house that are really keen to learn more about it, use it as a tool, as opposed to, shy away from it because it is something scary. In terms of how we use it in terms of, day-to-day when it comes to office work. But then when it comes to products, I'm working at the moment with Sarah to figure out how we can potentially offer some kind of authoring tool for our courses that could be used in line with some kind of AI overlay that we haven't quite decided upon yet. Trying to move away from some of the more manual processes, which I think is, in terms of what we can actually implement right now, move away from those manual processes that we've got. We've got people in the business that spend quite a lot of time now not doing the most fun work. If we can enhance that process, automate it, we can move people into doing things that they would rather be doing with their time, as opposed to, the more things that can be replicated, autonomous tasks.
So just as a sort of I guess what I sort of glean from that as well is that there is this prospect of it being a replacer, but it isn't necessarily something that isn't necessarily how it has to be. And actually it's more of a tool that can enhance the roles that people are performing and the work that they're doing, and actually take away some of that dog's body work, maybe the stuff that just, they could get those hours back and be putting them to something more useful or something more enjoyable even.
Yeah, I very much view it for us as something that can, in the right hands, we've got such a great talent pool here with scriptwriters and animators and videographers on the creative side of things. They can get a lot of that time back. They can create more, and just with the help of AI, it's just going to speed up the process that we've got for content production and kind of really expand upon what we can make. We are limited right now by sets or locations, that sort of thing. What we're seeing at the moment with developments in video generation mean that we could be, really producing some wild stuff over the next couple of years.
Absolutely. Looking forward to seeing it. Just in terms of, we obviously touched on a few of the pros of AI, then there are obviously cons as well. Perhaps we can just sort of talk to our viewers a little bit about that side of things as well, and where are the cons with AI? I know that we talked about just then those who are sort of programming, those who are building the robots, that we need to worry about those guys more than anything. But Sarah, what would you say are the cons of AI?
I mean, the risks of AI, I think, are if you just trust it too blindly. If you think, because the computer says it must be true. Well, if you do a Google search, for example, you could bring back a web page that is somebody's crazy ranting, right? And to some extent, depending on where the bot is looking at, it could do that too.
Okay.
So, so there are some risks that you have to think about, and in terms of the bigger cons, there are some jobs that are going to be affected by AI, and it's it's disingenuous to not acknowledge that. But there are also going to be jobs that are going to be enhanced and created by AI, because somebody's going to have to deal with the stuff that it produces.
And so it's fair to say then, just thinking about its trustworthiness overall, that this is a technology that requires secondary sourcing. You need to, not in terms of literally, but you could actually, you don't necessarily take everything it says on face value. You always need to just maintain your level of research and checking and fact checking and things like that. But it will speed up the process incredibly for a lot of those things, especially when it comes to script writing and things like that.
Yeah.
And just looking ahead to, we've talked a little bit about this need for human interaction and whether it would negate the need for that. But it sounds to me like the handlers, there's sort of always going to be a need for handling the AI and the artificial intelligence. Can you sort of touch a little bit more upon the idea that, this job replacement, this idea that humans could be replaced by AI, and, when we look back to history and different new technologies that have come out, we've seen that same fear come up with numerous things. How do you foresee it going forwards? Do you think we have a big sort of campaign that we need to run to sort of make sure that people know that they don't need to be scared by this, and actually what you're saying, and it can just enhance people's jobs rather than necessarily completely always replacing them?
I was just going to say, I think education is the biggest thing. Being able to introduce tools, if we take iHasco as an example, introducing tools that we think would help the process, as opposed to just sort of saying, look away. Don't worry about it. It's fine. I think, an understanding, as you say, in the past, we've had fear around things like the internet when it came about,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
robotics when they came about. It's education, and these things do become part of our daily lives, and we just need to adopt them, I think.
Yeah.
And if you think about any sort of technological revolution that has happened, that is what happens, right? If you think even about photography, right? You put a bunch of portrait painters out of work when you invented photography, but then whole new art styles emerged, and then people used photographs for references to make better paintings, and things like that will happen as well. If you think about the internet, right? Suddenly all sorts of jobs exist that never existed before. You have social media influencers and search engine optimization and all of these things, right? So, okay, maybe there are fewer travel agents than there used to be, but there are also way more people whose full-time job is online marketing. So I think we'll see something similar happen with AI.
So when you think about sort of trying to resolve people's concern with it, do you think it's a sense that we need to just get everyone on board with it? Do you think it's possible that we can get everyone to buy into the use of AI?
I think with the launch of ChatGPT, that's been done more successfully than anything else I've ever seen. I think it's really interesting that wherever you go, you hear everybody talking about AI at every level of the business, right? And I'm used to being sort of like the tech nerd locked away in the corner, that like maybe we just want to see the report at
Now
the end
you're
of
pushed
and
to the
now
front.
and now everybody wants to talk to me about AI, which is brilliant. But yeah, there's no pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, like, it must be, is it strange sort of having followed the journey of artificial intelligence for so long, and then suddenly to see, like, say, not only it being pushed to the forefront, but like you say, because you're attached, you are head of AI, you're getting pushed to the forefront too. It must be, is it sort of a strange sort of situation to be in now?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, data and machine learning and all of these things, these were in businesses very much tucked away and not talked about, at the board level. Whereas now I don't think there's a board in the country that's not talking about AI in some capacity.
And what about when it comes to businesses who are using AI for their different industries? What are the sort of risks that they have to sort of overcome in terms of adopting, or is there a specific bit of advice you might give to them in terms of looking into AI as an area to bring in into what they're doing? And would you say, certain things about how they might go about that process of bringing it in? Because I'm imagining it's not just a jump right in at the deep end sort of thing.
Hopefully not. I mean, I guess, so if you think about when we typically adopt new tools, right? We do what we used to do, but better, and then we find new ways to do it. So if you think about that first part is easier to do. And if you think about anywhere in your processes, that if you could throw 100 humans at it and that would achieve the job faster, then that's probably a good place for AI. If it's something that you're doing kind of on autopilot, it's not very fulfilling, there's not like a huge emotional engagement with it, it doesn't require human contact, all of those little pockets of inefficiency are the best use cases for, can I automate this with AI a bit?
Fantastic. James, that must be music to your ears, right? With regards to having teams of, people imagining coding and doing a lot of dev work. Perhaps you can just talk a little bit about how you've seen sort of the adoption of AI and how you've been able to implement it into maybe the work where your team is working.
Yeah, for sure. So I think to the point around how to implement, I think for us, it's been a case of what can we do that can get kind of a quick return on investment of time that kind of proves positive that there is benefit to having AI or different AI solutions within the business. So in terms of advice for the people, I think that's key. Like you say, it's not just a big jump. It's what can we do internally that can enhance our processes now and kind of take some of the boring stuff away from individuals. Across our teams, for sure, we're in a position where we've got software developers who are they're not putting code through AI as such, but it's quite a good sense check for different pieces, or looking for specific things that they might be developing. In the past might have been a bit more of a manual process through websites like Stack Overflow that you would go onto and really just try and look for examples that already exist. When you can ask an artificial intelligence, can you give me some examples of X? That really speeds up that process. When we talk about things like course development here, it's, as we mentioned earlier, having potentially like a skeleton of a course. It's kind of taking a lot of that research time away from those people, but also making sure that it goes through kind of the filter of that person still to validate what's coming through. So yeah, a lot of just the more menial tasks gives us the opportunity to think more about strategy and I guess also how we can use AI more to really remove even more of those menial tasks.
Yeah, it's such a good like first draft generator, and it's always easier to like edit than create from scratch. Like what it produces is usually like a pretty rubbish. Like you wouldn't just want to publish that, right? But it really is good at giving you something to work from.
Absolutely.
Especially when we've got individuals within the business who really know what they're looking for, right? I think if you were an individual who just didn't have any background in e-learning, and you said, "Oh, make me a fire awareness course," how do you validate that? So, we've got the expertise in-house to be able to say, this is good, this isn't so good, and I can, use my experience in the field to just really enhance what I'm being given as you say, like a first draft.
Yeah, I mean, when we were chatting about AI and creativity and script writing and helping with that research and structuring process, it sounds like you've got a team of little assistants basically who might be fresh out of uni or something, and they've, able to get out and do the research or put a little, a rough draft together. Like you said, you need to vet it, you need to improve it, you need to do this, but you've had all this work sort of put, and it can happen in this sort of click of your fingers. Just away from even what we're talking about within Citation and iHasco at the moment, what have you personally been most impressed with in terms of tools that you've seen pop up? Because I'm sure you're keeping a close eye on the general industry and hearing about all the different startups and new products and developments that's coming out. What sort of stuck out for you as the most impressive or thing that you would highlight as sort of one of the things to watch when it comes to the AI world?
I just the speed that's happening. My goodness, you think, oh, there's probably going to be something good happening in the next couple of years, and then suddenly it just lands in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I think that's been the thing that's been amazing about this sort of trend in technology. I mean, I was amazed when ChatGPT first came out about like how funny it could be and how creative it can be, and that ability to just kind of switch contexts very quickly and still carry on the thread was amazing.
What about yourself, James?
From a creative side, I've been really interested to see some of the music production that's been going on, generated with kind of a matrix of different artists that I already enjoy. It's really interesting to see how with different prompts an AI would produce very similar or actually really quite different music. So there's some bits going around online of, for example, Elvis fronted Nirvana, that kind of thing. Like, how would that sound? I think there is a real band that is an Elvis fronted Nirvana, but AI production in that way is fascinating to me, and just how it gets produced, but also the video side of things. I think for me is the wildest. Well, we've got Sora introduced by ChatGPT, I think a month ago.
If that, yeah, I think maybe in a couple of weeks, yeah.
And looking back to the I don't know if you saw the Will Smith eating spaghetti videos from about a year ago.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, the difference, what you're alluding to there is the quality difference, right? And what was that, maybe 6 months, 9 months ago, we were looking at a horrible, like nightmarish vision
Nightmare fuel stuff
of sort of a 10-second clip. And now, the Sora has just released a number of promotional kind of clips showing how prompts can turn into basically, 4K, 8K video, so quickly. Just, I think what would be quite useful just to sort of break down is how this speed is being achieved. And I feel like it comes down to sort of the mechanics of how artificial intelligence works and machine learning. And Sarah, perhaps you can just sort of break down for us a little bit, how AI works, or how you might define it in an elevator pitch or something, to maybe help us explain how that speed is being achieved, because it's sort of almost exponentially faster, but that also adds to the fear, right, that of what it can then become. But perhaps you can just break it down for us a little bit.
Yeah, big question.
Yeah, big question.
Just to
More
simply
pressure for you,
explain
yeah.
how artificial intelligence works. Yeah, it's fundamentally it's trained on vast amounts of data. So if you think about ChatGPT, it's trained on like the entire internet. And in similar ways to the human brain, like learns stuff by absorbing it. That's how these models work. Like neural networks, when they were first designed, were literally designed to be like a model of the brain with all the little bits. We've got a good slide on this on the internal deck.
Okay.
But
And neural networks are what you would use to train the artificial intelligence?
fundamentally, many of them are built with deep neural networks.
Right.
So there are lots of complex layers, and you don't necessarily know what's happening in every layer. So in traditional programming, you can see every line of code, and you can say, this goes here, almost like a calculator, do this, do that, right? But with these more advanced models, you sort of give it the input, give it the problem, give it examples of what good looks like, what you're looking for, and it makes the connections at a lower level.
And because it's able to do that at such speed, like trial and error sort of thing, is that how it's sort of able to continually learn, but learn at a faster and faster pace?
It depends on what type of artificial intelligence you're talking about. So actually, there are lots of different models out there for how things learn. One of the things you're describing is something like reinforcement learning. So you just let it keep trying until it gets it right based on feedback. So that can be one of the way. I think one of the things that's really happening as well, that's really accelerating development that you often see, is that there's this bit of an arms race, right, against the different companies, right? You'll see, okay, OpenAI is doing some really cool stuff, but then here's Google, and every time one drops something, somebody else drops it, and that kind of healthy competition can rapidly accelerate things as well.
And I mean, where does that sort of take us from here? What can the general public sort of be like expecting in the next, if what's happened in the last year has happened, like say we've gone from Will Smith shoving a pizza into his forehead to watching a Ferrari drive down a cliffside road in 8K. What does the future hold? And what can we sort of expect? And should we be scared? Because there is a lot of sort of doomsday kind of talk around the subject as well.
Yeah, I mean, I do have a Skynet T-shirt just in case.
Okay, great. That will serve you well in 6 months' time.
I, for one, welcome our robot overlords. Yeah, I mean, you do have to worry that this is going at such a pace that people aren't thinking about what are the guide rails that we need. But there are people who are saying, hey, think about the bias here. Think about who's creating it and what are they trying to do with it. Yeah, I think having these conversations and talking about them, everybody's engaged in the conversation. I think that has to be key.
I'm not scared. I just want to remain educated.
Yeah.
I think it's easy with how quickly everything's going to get a bit lost in where are we going next. I think it's a great question, but I also don't think there's a proper answer to it. Yeah, we keep getting surprised, I think, by what's happening.
But we are, I think, all of those things that we've been talking about, everything that we see, I think we're sort of rapidly going to get to as good as we could possibly want for that stuff. Like, I think audio is just going to be as good as you could want, video as good as you want, write a book, sure, right? Then the really exciting stuff is, okay, everything we have been doing up until now, nailed it, we're doing it better. Now what's next? What are we going to create completely new with AI? And that's really exciting.
And what are the sort of resources that, those who are learning about AI very early in their journey, business owners and employees at different companies who might be listening to this, what would you recommend are good resources to tap into? Is it good just to be on Twitter and following, a variety of random people, or are there more sort of official accounts and media that are good for staying in touch with this kind of stuff and to understand where the developments are going and how to stay, in the loop, basically?
I can speak to that in terms of what I've done. The first thing I did was picked up a book called Life 3.0, and I really enjoyed it. It was a really good way for me to kind of get into the mindset of how and why this is such a good thing for us. But also with those, as you say, the guide rails, kind of the ethical guide rails that we should be making sure that big businesses are adhering to when it comes to developing AI. For me, I really enjoy learning about things like this with a narrative as opposed to just these are the facts. So there's plenty of really good books out there, I think, at the moment. And I guess it's important to get one that isn't in the moment. As soon as it's published, it's probably, a couple of months out of date. So yeah, something for me that was really helpful was just getting that kind of narrative understanding of what we could be using it for. Kind of like you say, when we get to a point where we can produce everything that we already produce, goodness knows when that might be, next week perhaps, what can we do then? And I think that's, for me, the real exciting part of how can we refine what we've already got in terms of, I don't want to get too off-piste, but food production, that kind of thing. We can be refining all of those processes with AI when we get there.
Yeah, I mean, the hyper-personalized medicine, I think, is one of the places that's going to be really interesting with that. But I think there's just no substitute for experience, right? These tools are accessible to everyone, and that's the interesting, exciting part about this revolution, right? We're not tucked away in the lab as the nerds. Everyone can use it. So just go to ChatGPT, go to Bing, which is the Microsoft version. Just play with it. Ask it questions. Ask it to help you plan a holiday, make a recipe. Get one of these things where you can take a picture of your fridge and say, make me a recipe with these ingredients. I think just that trial and error, there's no substitute to understand what it can and can't do.
Fantastic. And just a quick final question then, for each of you. Do you think that, or do you expect that most businesses, you touched on a few different industries just then, do you expect that most businesses will adopt AI over the next few years in some capacity? Is that a fair sort of statement?
I think if they want to survive in a competitive market, yes.
Yeah, they will or they won't exist.
Yeah.
Very nice, short and sweet. Well, that's great. And that's all for this month's episode of The Learning Lounge by iHasco. We hope that we've managed to alleviate some of your AI concerns. Maybe we've thrown a few more in there, I don't know.
Sorry.
But hopefully given you some great insight on using it as a tool as well. And a special thanks to Sarah and James for joining us today and sharing your AI wisdom with us. We obviously touched upon the fact that AI is really a fantastic assistant for a lot of the people watching and listening in the different roles that they perform and for their businesses. It can be something that can really help to alleviate the dog's body work, the stuff that people don't want to do, that's draining hours. And could be something that's really helping with time efficiency and hopefully allowing them to free up time to push on and do more important things or things that can be more enjoyable for everyone working at the business. Also that things are developing at an incredibly rapid rate and that it's good to just try and keep a finger on the pulse in some capacity. And of course that just sort of, as you said, Sarah, at the end there, go and try it out. Use one of these really easy to use interfaces like ChatGPT or Bing and just have a play with it, see what it returns and make your own judgment about it, essentially. But some great insights there. And like I say, if you'd like to listen again or share this podcast, you can visit the iHasco website or our YouTube channel where you'll be able to listen on demand. So thank you both and we'll see you next time.